This is the Flatiron Building, the most photographed structure in New York City. Built in 1902 on land nobody wanted, using a method nobody trusted, it survived every storm, every recession, every decade of doubt. It did not survive its own owners. $190 million, dark floors, no answers. How does a building this famous site completely empty for 6 years? What were 5 experienced owners doing for half a decade that no decision ever got made? Why did a $190 million auction require absolutely no proof that the winner could pay?
I never thought that someone would bid so much for the building.
And why, after all of it, has not one person involved been asked to answer for any of it? At the corner of 5th Avenue Broadway and East 23rd Street, one of the busiest intersections in Manhattan, the two great avenues do not meet at a clean right angle. They cut across each other diagonally, leaving behind a narrow triangular wedge that looks more like a leftover scrap than a development site. At its sharpest point, the lot measures less than 6.5 feet across. Most developers would have walked away. In 1901, the Fuller Company, one of the leading construction firms in early skyscraper-era New York, acquired the lot and brought in Daniel Burnham, one of the most respected architects in America, to solve a problem nobody else had wanted. His answer was direct: do not hide the triangle. Build the tower around it. The result was a 22-story structure, 285 feet tall, every floor matching the shape of the plot beneath it. Every wall followed the street grid. At the northern end, the building tapered into the narrow point that would make it one of the most recognized silhouettes in the world. Newspapers called it Burnham's Folly. Critics said the wind would bring it down before the decade was out. Then the building opened in 1902, and the street proved them half right. The building's triangular prow split the incoming air like the bow of a ship, pushing it down, forcing it back up from the street below. The corner turned into a wind tunnel. Pedestrians were caught off guard, hats blown off skirts, lifted papers scattered. Men gathered deliberately to watch until police had to station themselves there, permanently shouting 23 skidoo to clear the crowds. If the wind could do that to the sidewalk, the question was obvious. What was it doing to the building itself? Most buildings of that era relied on thick brick walls to carry the load. The Flatiron used a steel skeleton frame, took the weight out of walls just to skin. Purdy and Henderson, the structural engineering firm behind the frame, built the skeleton to carry 4 times the maximum wind pressure the site was ever expected to face. Columns ran 35 feet down to Manhattan bedrock. To everyone on the street, a thin wedge being punished by the wind. To the engineers, a steel cage anchored into rock. The collapse never came. The building's official name was the Fuller Building. New Yorkers ignored it, almost immediately calling it the Flatiron instead, after the household iron it resembled. In 1966, New York City designated it a landmark. In 1989, the federal government followed with National Historic Landmark status. But that recognition created a quiet contradiction. It locked in the image the public loved while making the building significantly harder to change. A National Historic Landmark cannot be gutted on a developer's schedule. Windows, facade materials, exterior details, all subject to review and constraint. For decades, that tension stayed manageable because the building still had tenants. The moment it didn't, everything changed. That was the plan. Here's what actually happened. In 2004, Macmillan Publishers, one of the largest book publishers in the world, home to imprints including St. Martin's Press, and Henry Holt signed a lease renewal and took over all 21 office floors. They had been there since 1959. For nearly half a century, Macmillan was the only reason the building had a functioning purpose. Then in 2017, Macmillan announced it was leaving. They gave 2 full years of advance notice. Time enough, in theory, to find a replacement tenant, agree on a renovation budget, and plan what came next. In practice, that window closed without a single decision being made. The building had 5 owners, 4 of them GFP Real Estate, a New York-based commercial landlord, Newmark, a publicly traded real estate services firm, Sorgente Group, an Italian investment firm with US real estate holdings, and ABS Real Estate Partners, a New York investment group, collectively held 75% and wanted to move forward. The fifth, Nathan Silverstein, a New York attorney who had inherited his 25% stake from his father, blocked every proposal. Under the ownership agreement, any single partner could veto any major decision. With Silverstein unwilling to sign off, the other four had no legal path forward. Macmillan left in 2019. All 21 floors went dark. The most photographed office building in Manhattan sat completely empty while its owners argued hemorrhaging hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. By 2021, the four majority partners had run out of patience. They filed suit against Silverstein to force a court-ordered sale. He filed back, claiming the majority had never seriously tried to fill the building in the first place. In January 2023, a New York State Supreme Court judge sided with the majority and ordered the building sold at public auction. The first forced sale of the Flatiron in nearly 100 years. Then the people running the building made it worse. While the building sat empty, the firm responsible for finding it a new tenant was Newmark Group, the same real estate services company that was also one of the five owners. One name came up as a serious candidate, Knotel, a co-working startup looking for a flagship Manhattan address. The terms Newmark was negotiating were below market rate, significantly below for one of the most iconic addresses in the country. Silverstein raised it in court filings. Newmark's CEO Barry Gussin held a large personal stake in Knotel. The firm paid to find the best deal for the Flatiron was steering negotiations toward a company that would directly benefit its own leadership. The deal never closed. In 2021, Knotel filed for bankruptcy. That same year, Newmark acquired it. The firm managing the Flatiron's leasing strategy ended up owning the very company it had been negotiating with. No investigation was opened. No one was asked to explain the arrangement publicly. The building stayed empty. Then it gets worse.
Well, New York's most iconic triangular building, the Flatiron, just sold for a whopping $190 million at a Manhattan auction yesterday. The public auction was held outside the state Supreme Court.
That January 2023 court order set a date. March 22nd, 2023, public auction. The majority owners were confident. They held 75% of the building, could bid using their existing stake as credit, and expected to walk out with full control. Instead, a man named Jacob Garlick walked in. Garlick was not a recognized name in New York real estate. He had no known affiliation with any major development firm. He was, by his own later description, a Virginia-based developer who had dreamed of owning this building since he was 14 years old. He placed a bid of $190 million, narrowly outbidding the majority owners, who had stopped at $189.5 million, and won. The room went quiet. Nobody knew who he was. Jeffrey Gurrell, chairman of GFP Real Estate and one of the majority owners who had just been outbid, told NY 1 moments after the auction, "I was kind of shocked. To tell you the truth, I never thought that someone would bid so much for the building. It's a beautiful building, but it needs $100 million of upgrades. It's basically empty." Under the auction rules, the winning bidder had 10 days to provide a $19 million deposit, 10% of the purchase price. Garlick did not pay. He did not call. His attorneys blamed two separate banks for failed wire transfers, first Truist Bank, then PNC Bank. They submitted documentation showing a $12 million account balance. The account holder's name was redacted. Nobody could verify anything. What a court complaint filed by the majority owners later documented the day before the auction. Garlick had spent several hours with Nathan Silverstein, the minority owner whose refusal to cooperate had triggered the forced sale and who turned out to be a relative of Garlick's. After the auction ended, bidding paddles still in hand, Garlick confirmed the meeting himself while addressing a crowd outside. Silverstein never responded to requests for comment. The lawsuit against Abraham Trust Garlick's Virginia-based real estate firm remains unresolved. And here's the part nobody wants to answer. A second auction was held in May 2023, this time requiring a certified check just to enter the room. The majority owners won the building back for $161 million, $29 million less than Garlick's phantom bid. To move the project forward, they brought in the Brodsky Organization, a New York residential developer with a track record of converting landmark office buildings, and secured a $357 million construction loan in October 2024 from Tyco Capital, a private credit firm backed by Elliott Investment Management, the hedge fund, run by billionaire Paul Singer, one of the world's most aggressive distressed asset investors. Tyco had been in operation for less than 18 months at the time. The Flatiron, federally protected, nationally landmarked, built to outlast everything, is now collateral on a $357 million note held by a lender with no long-term track record. The Garlick lawsuit is still open. The Knotel conflict of interest was never examined. The ownership structure that paralyzed the building for 6 years was never reformed. Nobody lost a license. Nobody was fined. Nobody resigned. That gap didn't close itself, and nobody who made any of these decisions has been asked to justify a single one of them. One ownership clause buried a landmark for 6 years. Nobody paid $1 for it. And it is already happening again 1 mile north. The Helmsley Building at 230 Park Avenue was completed in 1929 by the New York Central Railroad, spanning active rail tracks running directly beneath it. The same generation of engineering that produced the Flatiron. RXR Realty, a major New York commercial real estate firm, purchased it in 2015 for $1.2 billion and poured $100 million into renovations. It was not enough. By 2024, the value had dropped 40% from $1.3 billion to $770 million. RXR defaulted on a $670 million mortgage. Lenders filed foreclosure in December 2024. The Flatiron was paralyzed by its owners. The Helmsley is being pulled apart by its debt. 2 different problems, the same result. A landmarked building in Manhattan with no clear path forward, and nobody required to explain how it got there. There is a building in your city right now in a similar position. You just don't know which one it is yet. The Brodsky Organization and Sorgente Group are converting the Flatiron into 38 luxury condominiums. A building that once housed hundreds of office workers across 21 floors is being handed to 38 buyers. Prices start at $10.95 million. The top floor lists at $50 million. Was this the best outcome the city could get, or is a $50 million penthouse simply the only deal that made the numbers work? Nobody who approved this conversion is being asked to justify that choice publicly. The Flatiron survived Burnham's critics' The Great Depression and a phantom $190 million bid. What it could not survive was 5 owners who could not agree, and a system that made sure nobody had to answer for it. Name a building in your city that fits this pattern exactly. The project you just watched took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.